Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Cineconcert Studio. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different thing today. It'll be great fun. Many of you out there have perhaps followed our Film Music Fridays over the years. We're going to play a little bit around with something a little different. We're going to call it Film Music Focus. We're going to dial in a little bit more in detail to all things music and film related. So welcome to the first installment of Film Music Focus. I'm Justin Freer, and I'm happy to start this new endeavor off with one of my favorite scores by one of my favorite composers, Jerry Goldsmith, who I had such the humble opportunity to study a bit with before he passed away all those years ago. One of my favorite composers for sure, and one of my favorite scores that he's ever written, it was in the last decade of his life, was to the Wolfgang Petersen film Air Force One. He had very little time to write this score, as perhaps many of you know. Perhaps many of you don't know, maybe some here and there, that Randy Newman was originally the composer on this one. And there were, as the story goes, I guess, differences between composer and director on this. So Randy Newman was let go, and Jerry Goldsmith came on very, very, very late in the process, and had only a couple of weeks to write an enormous amount of music. So we'll take a look at my favorite cue from the film. That is called the hijacking. And let's start, before we get into the hijacking, let's just listen a little bit to the main theme from Air Force One, the main title that you hear over the credits in the beginning. And we'll come back in just a minute and talk a little bit about the main title, and then we'll move right into the hijacking cue, which, for those of you that have the album, is track 4 on the album, or at least the original soundtrack album. It's about a 7.5 to 8 minute cue, but we'll come back in a minute, so enjoy this amazing main title from Air Force One, composed by Jerry Goldsmith. Okay, welcome back. That was the main title from Air Force One. That started out in G, and you're going to hear a lot of that motive throughout the upcoming cue. We're going to discuss the hijacking. It starts off like this. Now, for those of you that know Jerry's music, and for those of you that don't, Goldsmith was really well known for using multimeters throughout his music. It was part of his DNA, part of his sound. And you'll hear a lot of material in 7/8, 4/4, 7/8 combinations, the occasional 3/8, 5/8 bars. We'll talk a bit about that in a second. But these multimeters, he was a great fan of Stravinsky. Certainly didn't sound like Stravinsky, but Goldsmith understood the power of kind of multimeters and what it can do to kind of offset your rhythm internally as a human, offset the rhythm of the film. And something worth certainly talking about is the advantage of being able to use eighth notes, subtracting them and adding them at will, and still making it sound like it's part of the musical scope without it feeling like it's affecting the sound. And it gives you the ability to either get to a cut more quickly or to take your time. Perhaps it's 80 beats per minute, and in a 7/8 bar, you need to get there a little bit sooner. So maybe you chop off 2 eighth notes and you get there sooner with a 5/8 bar. But while that might help the film and the music match more closely, it also does not interrupt the otherwise bass DNA of the music. And since Jerry's music was so peppered throughout with these types of meters, when he would do that, it wouldn't feel like it was being interrupted. So in that way, it was a kind of an ingenious approach to solving several issues, both musical as well as practical form. So the hijacking cue begins with Gary Oldman leading his news crew, who have found a way to board Air Force One under false pretenses. They are alerted by a Secret Service agent who's on the take with a smoke grenade, and then that Secret Service agent opens the security locker filled with assault rifles and pistols and a number of other things. And the hijacking begins. Now, we'll talk about a lot of the devices that Jerry employs here. Many of them, if not most of them, are designed to create tension. The first one that you'll hear is a combination of just the violins very high, just hacking away, really giving some strength and percussive elements to the film, and the horns in minor thirds. So it's a bit like this. So right away you hear Jerry's 7/8 rhythm up there in the violins, and the horns are pulling down off of one another. We're in F minor, so this F sharp A pulling down to F and A flat to a root position F minor. Already he's giving you little tiny devices that want to resolve, or they end up going somewhere. And we'll go a little bit further in. We'll talk more about what these kinds of harmonic devices are doing, as well as rhythmic devices. Let's have a quick listen to this here in the orchestra, and we'll come back in just a minute. Really exciting and very, very forceful as far as the rhythm right off the bat. And we'll come back here to a bit of a bridge here that Jerry uses to get into some of the additional material, and it also kind of speaks to the original main theme. He's in F sharp here, and what you hear in the recording here in just a minute, he's in 4/4, but he gives you a really, really strong and of 4 accent. And what that does is references where his normal strong beat is, which is on 1 after a 7/8 bar. And when you hear these 7/8 bars enough, you start to feel the groove. And all of a sudden, he puts you into 4/4, and it gives you a huge accent on the F sharp and the low trombones and the strings, as well as the chimbassos. And it makes you feel like you're in 7/8 again, but you're not. You're in 4/4. So it's kind of a fun way to recapitulate rhythmically what he was doing while giving you something new and fresh at the same time. So then again, you hear that little melodic figure, that motivic figure that you get right from the very beginning of the film. So let's have a look at have a listen rather to what Jerry did here in this little tiny small bridge. Okay, we'll skip ahead a little bit further into the cue here, and this next motive that you hear, he uses it a lot throughout the rest of the cue to just build more and more driving tension. You'll get it in G sharp, and this material here is the first time you'll hear this kind of in long form. So you get this here to start in G sharp, and you'll get this fairly frequently thereafter. But you also hear this material once again referencing the main title from the very beginning of the film. So let's have a quick listen to what Jerry's doing here with this material. Okay, so you've heard some of that incredibly powerful 4478 metered material, and here we have it again. We'll talk a bit about how he takes advantage of a very large string section, but only in a couple of notes, just how big he can get things by having these strings just hack away at down bows, down bows, down bows. It's a really interesting way of building tension. Then we'll talk about what he does harmonically as well. So we're back here with some of the same material in a 4478 metered pattern, and he's back in G sharp minor. He's going to turn it into F minor pretty quickly. I'll show you kind of how he does it. And the material he's got here is referencing what he came up with about 3.5, 4 minutes into the cue. This time the trumpets have the tune up top, the low strings and brass have the material down on the bass. So we're in the F minor now, and this is one of my favorite parts where he's just got the string section, the violins, the viola just hacking away in F minor. And they don't actually, when he starts, he doesn't even have the bass, so it's just this. It's really, really incredible. So when you add the bass in, you have a listen here to what Jerry does, and then he goes up. And then again to G. And then again to G sharp. All the while adding horns into the mix, adding trumpets into the mix, and as he moves up chromatically from F minor to F sharp minor to G G sharp minor with the addition of more instruments, particularly in the brass, the tension just grows and grows and grows. Have a listen here to what he does. It's really amazing. Okay, and we'll have a listen to one more thing here before we conclude the first episode of Film Music Focus. The music takes its biggest turn during the hijacking scene when Air Force One has finally made touchdown on Ramstein Air Force Base, the runway, and they're trying to regain control of the aircraft, or the terrorists rather are trying to gain control of the aircraft while they're wildly skidding about the runway. And the last pilot, or the last Air Force One pilot, before he gets shot in the head by Gary Oldman, he puts the emergency brake on, and it turns the aircraft dramatically to the left, and Jerry's music takes a dramatic turn here at the same time. And it's one of my favorite parts in the cue. And what he does here, he plays a lot with kind of diminished major 7 chords. And so for those of you that this is kind of the sound, I'm in E diminished major 7, and he plays a lot with this here. He's got the root always in the bass, and the horns in this case are taking the 3rd and the 7th. And what I like about this sound is that, as he is in so many other places in the cue, he creates this sound where the tension wants to go somewhere. Where it goes, we don't quite know yet. And he does it here also in G sharp, which we'll get to in a second. But that 7th always wants to resolve. So as you hear this sound, that D sharp resolves down to the C sharp and the horns, and then he'll punch it up a minor 3rd, and you'll take it. So first, again, we're in here in E, then he'll take it to G diminished major 7. Now That's the trumpets playing the tune this time, and then he'll give you a bit of a bridge, and then we're back in it once again, and he's playing in G sharp. This time the strings are taking it, and then he modulates up again on minor third, just as he did before from E to G. This time he goes from G sharp to B in the same sounds. And it just keeps going and going and going. So you'll notice a similar device to what he was doing before, where he was going from F minor to F sharp minor to G sharp minor. Here it's E diminished major 7 to G diminished major 7, and then a bit of a bridge, and then we're to G sharp diminished major 7, and then to B diminished major 7. So a similar pattern going upwards in the scale, and the effect here is amazing. I love it. So have a listen. This music only Jerry could have written, and if you haven't seen this film, if you haven't heard the score, go out and listen to the whole soundtrack. Go out and see the whole film. It's incredibly fun to see Air Force One in the way that it's taken through the eyes of Wolfgang Petersen, the director. One of my favorite films he ever directed, of course, was Das Boot, one of his most famous, perhaps, of all time, maybe his most famous movie. And you'll see some similarities. So anyhow, we'll see you next time for Film Music Focus. We're going to be doing these a lot more often than we do Film Music Fridays, so I look forward to diving into something fun next time. It'll probably be something related just to kind of keep the military theme going a little bit. We'll talk a bit about how military music throughout film history has kind of taken its seed in certain films through certain composers. With that, we'll see you all soon. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay healthy out there, and we'll see you all at the next one.